Everyone, welcome to week number 2. If there's one thing that I could give you as a takeaway from all of this course that would have the greatest impact on you and your results, it would be this week's critical numbers lesson. In order for you to grow, you have to understand where you are. And we can improve one area or we can improve multiple areas if we understand what it is that we're trying to track, what it is we're trying to measure. What we measure, we improve. So I want you to really take some time this week to understand what these numbers are and then develop a plan to track these numbers daily and weekly. So as part of this, there's a tracking sheet in the website with you. So you just go in there and you download that, put it on your desktop, put it on your phone, whatever it is. And then every day you go in there and you enter the numbers into that tracking website, and those will roll up to your aggregate numbers for the week, and then you just track those weekly numbers as you go along. We really want about 4 to 6 weeks worth of data to give ourselves a good idea of what happens throughout this process. So the more data we have, better off it is. And when we do goal setting, these are going to be very, very important because we have to understand where we're at. If we have a goal to be fit or to lose weight, and we don't understand what our current fitness level is, or we don't understand what our current weight is, how do we know if we've lost weight? How do we know if we become more fit? So the very first thing we have to do when we start to say, okay, this is my baseline for improvement, is we have to understand what that baseline is. So this week is very, very important in establishing that baseline, okay? The first thing we want to track is contacts. And so when we talk about contacts, that is a human being, a person that we've met or that we've called or that we've talked to and we've had a business conversation. So they know that we're going to follow up, whether it's right now, whether it's a week from now, whether it's a month from now. They know that we're going to follow up. We're going to have a conversation about what it is we do, how we can help them improve their lives. So the very first thing is, how many people did you contact this particular day? Some days it might be 20, some days it might be 1, some days it could be 0. The fact is, right now, what that number is not as important as that we do it every single day. And we just understand that after 7 days in a week, we've contacted however many people that is, 20, 40, 80, 100, 200, whatever that number is. Again, it doesn't matter right now because we're establishing that baseline. Okay, now once we have those contacts made, a certain number of those people, right? So let's say it's 100. A certain number of those 100 are going to want to meet with us because they understand what we do, that we could offer some sort of value. We're going to get into scripts on how to set these appointments later. But just understand for right now that you're having these conversations. Maybe you're putting messages out on Facebook and somebody's replying to Facebook and then you reply back to them. Hopefully that turns into a conversation. That conversation turns into an appointment. So we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to them about the value that we can provide them in whatever transaction it is that we have in our industry. It's a little different for all of you, but each of us has this same basic premise. Contact people, set an appointment. In that appointment, we're going to try and deliver some kind of value. Now, I do know that as we go along in this, if I set 5 appointments, in all likelihood, most of the time, all 5 won't show up. Somebody's going to cancel, somebody's going to stand us up, somebody's going to say, I changed my mind, somebody's going to say, I need to postpone it. But we know that there's a ratio between the appointments we set and how many of those we actually sit down and do a presentation for, that we actually get to have this conversation about value, right? So we've started out with contacts. In those contacts, we make appointments. Out of those appointments, a certain amount of them show. So there's a ratio to each of those, okay? The next thing is, once we do these presentations, we sign a listing agreement, we sign a buyer's agreement, we sign, or we take an application for a loan, or we quote the insurance and we get a transaction. They give us our credit card to provide them with insurance. Whatever your next step is, where they sign, and it's now official because they're bound by contract to do business with you, whatever that number is, is our next thing. So that's sort of the signing portion of it, the contract portion of it. So we contact people, we set appointments, a certain number of them show up. Not all of them are going to sign something, but a certain percentage will. So we need to know how many of those people signed an agreement with us, how many of those people signed up, so to speak. Okay, and that's different than us delivering what it is they signed up for, because we can lose some of those along the way, but we'll get to that. A lot of times we'll get a signed agreement, we can list a home and it doesn't sell, so we never actually close. So the next thing we want to track is closings. So we have the people we talk to, we set an appointment, some of them show up, we do a presentation, some of them sign an agreement with us, most of them, but not all, will actually go to closing. Okay, so that's the next component of what we track. After that, we want to know how much did they spend. And so, you know, this we can have a conversation about. There's some different trains of thought about this. We can do the sale amount. So if you sell homes, that is the amount that the home sold for. We can do commissions. What did you make on that? This process still works. This tracker still works with either one of those. If you're in mortgages, same thing. We can track loan amount. We can track commission. If you're in insurance, we can track policy. How much is that policy worth? Or we can track the commission on that policy. I think for the sake of this exercise, the sake of this tracker, I kind of like the sale amount. I kind of like that gross dollar amount that you're going to get commission on, but not the commission. So some people are a little more focused on commission. I like to focus on what am I selling. And there's reasons for this, because as we go through this process, and I talked to some of you about the money back guarantee that I offer, when we go through this, one of the reasons that I'm so confident that I can double your sales is because I understand how these numbers work, and I understand all of the ratios between those numbers, right? Your presentations, your appointments, or excuse me, your contacts, the amount of people you talk to, the appointments, not all of them show up, so you do some presentations. Not all of them sign an agreement, most of them do, and then not all of them close, but most of them do. And what did I sell? How much did I sell for? So those are the components that we track. When we track those components, if we can make just a 10 to 15% improvement in each one of those areas, then what we do is we give ourselves the ability to double our income. And when we do a live meeting, next time we do a face-to-face meeting, I'll bring you some examples of exactly how this works, and you can see how when we make these small improvements in the different areas, because of compounding, these equal 100% increase in sales or more, 100% increase in income or more. And so when we sort of just break them down, these are just, each of these are skill sets that you need to get a little better at. And then there's scripts provided so that you can actually have a tool to get better at, instead of just kind of winging it. And so one of the things we need to do is we need to understand that, okay, the contacts, can we get better and more efficient at contacting people? Yes, so we'll have a whole module on how to contact people and what to say. Now there's a ratio between the number of people that we contact and how many of those will give us an appointment. That's a very, very simple process too. What script are we using to create a little bit of attention, create a little bit of interest, and convert that into an appointment? And that's an easily transferable skill. That's an easily learned skill along with the script that does that. Okay, there's a ratio between how many appointments we set and how many of those people actually show up. And out of that, it's just what kind of appointments are you setting? Are you talking to the right people? Are you talking to qualified people that are interested in meeting with you, or are you setting soft appointments? Because if you set a soft appointment, it's more likely to reschedule. It's more likely to stand you up. So sometimes when we go through this process, we have to understand that how we set the appointment is just as important as just getting an appointment. Because as we increase that ratio, we know that those people are really interested. Okay? So now we've got these people to come and meet with us, and we're having coffee, or we go by their house, they come by our office, whatever the scenario is. And we're presenting to them why we're the option, why we are the obvious choice for them to select to move forward in this process. That's our value proposition. That's our unique value proposition. And the more practiced we are at this, and the more polished we are, the more we give them a reason to move ahead with us instead of wanting to think about it or wanting to do research because we're the obvious choice. And so again, it's a very easily learned skill that has a script to go along with it. So we just have to get a little bit better at that. Just think about that. Just getting 15% better out of all the people that you present to getting them to sign an agreement with you. Okay. Again, if we're intentional about the people that we're talking to, we're going to get more appointments. They're going to be stronger appointments. They're going to show up. More of them are going to sign agreements with you. More of them are going to take that first step where they're going to sign off on something. And the more people that do that, the more likely they are to close. More likely they are to close, right? And then the final component is, what did we sell them? And if we go back to the people that we're contacting, did we contact the right people to sell what we want to sell? So if our average loan amount or average sale amount is $250,000 and we want to get a little bit better at that, how do we get people, how do we get those contacts that are going to probably bring us $275,000? It's just understanding that we're intentional how we market ourselves, about where we're looking to meet people, about how we meet people and the value that we offer. That affects that sale amount in many, many cases, right? If you're in the insurance business, if you're meeting a bunch of people that have one car and bad driving records, you're going to have a very different type of policy than if you're meeting a husband and a wife with a couple of kids that own a home and maybe an RV and a boat, because that policy is going to be very different. The amount of policy is going to be very, very different. And so we just have to understand we do have control over that. It's not random. Where we meet people matters. How we meet people matters. Who we market to matters, right? If I say, hey, if you know anybody that wants to buy or sell a home, who knows what I'm going to get? That's random. But when I target that message, which we'll get to, we'll talk about how to use Facebook. We'll talk about how to market the right way to get the type of person, that exact perfect client for you. It's intentional. We'll talk about the message that you send out and how to build that and how to attract those people, as opposed to just chasing anyone who wants to buy or sell a home. Because it's one of the biggest mistakes that we make, is we just put ourselves in with this other group of people to say, hey, if you know anybody that wants to buy or sell a home. And so these critical numbers are very, very important for us to understand what our strengths and weaknesses are throughout this process. And also understand how we can affect a little bit of change in each of those to just get better every single day. And just improve in one of those areas each week. And as we do that, those small increases compound on one another, and that's how we double our income. So I'm super excited for you guys in this week's message. It's very, very important that you start tracking this now, because we have to have a block of data that's really a good representation of what your numbers are for when we do the goal setting a little bit later. And the goal setting is a lot of fun. It's a really fun module. It's going to be a big deal. We're going to do that in person. It's going to be probably a half-day seminar. We're going to build vision boards. We're going to attach a lot of emotion to it to make it easier to do the things that we need to do to get there. But we have to know what your numbers are. We have to know what your habits are. We have to know on a daily basis what goes down in your business. Okay, so remember, starting today, you need to start tracking your contacts, your appointments, your presentations, your signed agreements, your closings, and the amount. Okay, we have to track all of those things. There's a tracker included in this module, so you just download that to your desktop. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. If you screw it up, just re-download it. Track things daily, because this is a really important conversation that we're going to have as I call you and we're talking about your progress through this program. I have to know those numbers if I'm going to help you out. I have to know those numbers, and they have to be accurate if we're going to double your sales. That's why I'm so excited about this module. It's because that was my guarantee to you, was to get you to doubling your income. Okay? This program has worked for hundreds of other people. And when you follow it, it's never failed to produce an additional 6 figures in income or a doubling of sales. So if one of those two things excites you, dive into this and get started today in tracking your numbers so that as quickly as possible we can get that foundation, and then we start just incrementally improving in each one of those areas. So you guys have an amazing week. We'll see you in tomorrow morning's video.